led to host an event like that. We can provide the support that you need to make that event successful. That day of action is on November 18th. Climate change is another huge issue that we're tackling as a state. Most states have options. They get to pick one or two issues that they work on as a state. Florida is so diverse and is impacted so much by all of these issues that as a state, we've been working on all these national priorities. And some teams have even worked in some local and state issues into their work. But climate change is an issue that we find very important for us to address, because there are tons of people out there called climate deniers, including our very own Senator Marco Rubio, who we are pushing to try to stand up to truth, push to stand up to the science, the fact that 97% of scientists and all of NASA believe that climate change is a reality and is impacting our coastline. We just had a climate change conference in Miami. We had 41 attendees who came out to learn more about how they can organize and take action, especially after reading the Rolling Stones cover article about Miami being underwater in 30 years if we don't do what we need to do to take care of this issue. So if that's something that speaks to you, right now we don't have leadership yet to take on that issue, but if it's something you're passionate about, please talk to your leadership here. I know Sandy and her team would be thrilled to have someone who can own climate change as an issue. Lisa, I'm so excited, is taking on Stand with Women. I know they're going to talk about the event you guys have coming up pretty soon. I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled, that OFA Naples is taking on our women's issues. We need to build a strong army of folks who are interested and engaged around women's issues, because we anticipate and want to be ready for two things. One, the federal legislation for paycheck fairness, so that yourselves or your wives, for the men in the audience, your daughters, your nieces, can get the same paycheck that their male counterparts can receive. Some people think that because the Ledbetter Equal Pay Act was passed, that now there's pay equity in this country, and all that law did was give women the opportunity to fight for the lost wages. It doesn't proactively make pay equal in this country. And so passing that federal law is very important. The second piece is states' rights. In North Carolina and in Texas, they didn't have a grassroots movement to help really counteract until the last couple of weeks with Wendy Davis in Texas. Some of the negative laws impacting women's health around access to abortion if needed. And we want to be ready if a law like that finds its way in the Florida legislature. And the only way we can do that is if we begin to build that pipeline now, and that's what Lisa's working on, building a strong team of people working with her on our Stand With Women initiative. So I want to thank Lisa for stepping up to the plate on that. And lastly, but certainly not least, is voting rights. As you all remember, during actually two issues, voting rights and INDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. There are two somewhat related issues in the sense that the Supreme Court weighed heavily on gay rights issues during the summer surrounding marriage equality. They also ruled on voting rights and basically left it to Congress to redraw the map for what states and counties should have to go to the Department of Justice when there's discrimination happening at the polls or in voting laws. And so what we need to do is be able to push our members of Congress to begin to start creating a plan of action that's going to effectively limit some of the discriminatory practices that happen around voting law. So we haven't started in force pushing that initiative yet, but it's coming, and if it's an issue that you're interested in and passionate about, please let me know. And with the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, as you all probably read, yesterday, for the first time in history, the U.S. Senate voted for cloture around the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, outlining discrimination to LGBT people in the workplace. So essentially, in Florida, where I live, I could be fired because I'm a gay American. And so can millions of other people across this country. Right now, we're looking at a really hard passage through the House of Representatives. And in order to get it passed, we're definitely going to have to work at it, let our members of Congress know that this is an issue that we care about, and begin organizing. But I know we can do it, because we elected and we re-elected President Barack Obama, and we were able to do what we needed to do to build strong teams all across the state, all across this country, and right here in Naples. And I know with all of these issues, that each and every one of you around this room can come together to make sure that the changes that we seek, the agenda that we fought so hard for when we worked our butts off to re-elect the president is going to come to pass. How many of you felt really tired after Election Day, right? You were excited, you were thrilled that we re-elected the president, you're just like, oh, yes, we won. And then after he got into office, you saw how crazy and how hard it is for us to actually pass legislation that supports the agenda that a broad majority of Americans voted for. And so the president often says, and it's one of my favorite quotes by the president, that when we elect someone, we elect them for the opportunity to make change. The only way we can make that change is if we step up to be the change that we want to see in our country and in our government. And that's what Organizing for Action is about, is making sure that we're able to connect people and engage the network of millions of Americans, including yourself, that work so hard to make this opportunity come to pass. And it's a shame on us if we don't do everything that we can with every fiber in our body to make sure that these issues and other issues across this country get addressed, because we're going to make our members of Congress accountable to it, so that on Election Day next year, even though we're an issues-based organization, people will know where their elected officials stand on the side of these issues. And the key thing about OFA as Organizing for Action is that the issues that we are supporting are all issues that a wide majority, Republican and Democrat, of Americans and independents supported. 90% on background checks. Over 70% on immigration reform. As I said, 97% of scientists in NASA on climate change. So these aren't far left or far right issues. These are mainstream issues that our members of Congress have a duty to represent when they take their votes. And right now they're not. They're catering to very small fringes of their party. And we have to do what's necessary to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they vote the right way. They're not going to do it easily. We have to hold our earned media events. We have to have office visits like Liza and Lisa had, and do what we can to make sure that they feel the pressure, whether it's in the media, it's in front of their offices, if it's people that they know who've been able to power map and engage to have those conversations. We have to make sure that our members of Congress are voting the way that we voted last November, which is to pass a progressive and strong agenda through the U.S. Congress so that the president can sign those bills into law and change the lives of millions of Americans. So thank you for the brief update, for allowing me to speak about kind of where we are nationally in terms of our campaigns. We are rolling out our new Healthcare for the Holidays materials, have any of you seen the website or the video yet? Not yet?
It's funny. You have to watch it.
It's amazing. It made my entire day. So you should not drive and have your cell phone up. That's a bad habit that I do. But unfortunately, it's passed a state law outlawing, so I've got to get better at not doing that. But I was watching it, and I was cracking up the whole way because it's hilarious.
Give us the website.
It is. It's BarackObama.com/health-care-holidays. So just think healthcare holidays, but there's hyphens in between. BarackObama.com.
Which you have on this quarter fact sheet.
Yep. There we go. So where you see BarackObama.com, it's just going to be /health-care-holidays. And there are some really good resources that you can use to talk to your loved ones about the Affordable Care Act. Particularly young people in your family who might think they're invincible and don't need coverage. They can go online and learn a little bit more about how the health care law benefits them. So I want to take some questions. I know there are some folks who are new to OFA in the room. So if there are questions you have about the work we're doing, the issues that we've selected, other issues you might be passionate about. After we take questions, I'm going to end with a little bit of information about 2014 and what that's going to look like for OFA.
I have a question. I just read this about a Florida state website. I wanted to know what you have to say about it. That it says here, looking for information about health conditions and health care in Florida. There's a website called floridahealthfinder.gov. Are you familiar with that website? Can you tell us if there really is anything valuable that if people can't access the website that they're trying to access, that they might get some useful information from this?
I'm personally not familiar with the site, but if it's a .gov, it's traditionally legitimate because those are.
I know it's legitimate, but you don't know anything about it.
I haven't checked it out.
Parallel information that might be helpful.
There probably is some information that's specific to Florida. What I think that website might be is when you go to healthcare.gov generally, you can put in your zip code or your state, and it'll take you to information that's state specific. But I imagine, I could be wrong, but that might be the direct link to the website for Florida information.
This is the Florida website.
Yeah, so it probably has some good information that talks about the federal exchanges, and probably also mentions the fact that we aren't going to be expanding Medicaid.
Is there a value in telling people that they could go? I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I just found this.
I would recommend checking it out, seeing if it's got useful information. I know Get Covered just came out with a calculator that's similar to the Kaiser calculator, but a little bit more user-friendly. So you might want to check that out. I think it's getcoveredamerica.com/calculator or .org/calculator.
Right, I tried it out because
Is it good?
I pretended to be, a certain age and have a certain number of children, plugged it in, worked.
So
Came up with a reasonable figure.
And basically what the calculator does is it allows you to see how much your subsidy is going to be. So how much would you be receiving to cover the cost of health care from the government?
8,500. Yeah, 8,500 megabytes.
As far as Medicaid's concerned,
much.
I mean, I'm very concerned about that. And Scott, actually, my daughter is an attorney, and she sits on the hospital board in Jacksonville. And she said, Scott turned it over to the legislature.
Yes.
And then, so he said, I'm going to wash my hands of this because I don't want to keep all these people from here. Change it to the legislature. So is our legislature all Republican, and when will it change? And if we get rid of Scott, can we go back and get Medicaid? Because I may need a wheelchair someday, and that's covered under Medicaid. A lot of people don't know that.
That's a great question. There's actually two questions kind of embedded in what she just said. She was asking about the Medicaid expansion and whose decision is it, basically, whether or not we get Medicaid expanded. So Governor Scott basically did a very passive but interesting move. He basically said, I support expanding Medicaid, but he didn't really champion it, right? So some of you remember Jan Brewer. She was the governor who shook her finger at the president on the tarmac. You remember that news story? She's the governor who supported Medicaid expansion, surprisingly, but she championed it. She didn't just say, I support it, and then let me walk away and hope the legislature figures it out. She went to the legislature and said, I'm not going to pass any of your bills that you want passed. I don't care if you get both sides of the legislature supporting it. I'm not going to pass a single bill if you don't support Medicaid expansion. So she strong-armed, basically, her legislature to make sure that it happened. So that's an example of a Republican governor who saw that they wanted to expand it and did something about it, right? What Governor Scott basically did was say, I believe in expanding Medicaid, but I'm going to step back and just see what happens, right? So this is what happened when he made that decision. The state Senate created a plan based off of another plan in another state that basically took the money from the federal government and would allow individuals to apply to get subsidies to pay for private health care. So instead of expanding Medicaid, it would cover the same population of people.